There is no such broad drive at the moment. I don't think there's going to be one either. And the reason is that the institutionalized nature of the problem means that rooting it out would cause damage and upheaval that the ANC could probably not survive.
Will Jacob Zuma appear before the Zondo Commission of Enquiry? Currently, Mr. Zuma is subject to a constitutional court ruling which requires him to attend the commission, but he's digging in his heels. What does this mean for internal dynamics within the ANC and for South Africa's politics more broadly? Joining me to discuss this is CRA Director Frans Cronje. Frans, what do you read into this event and this set of circumstances?
I've got reservations about the Zondo Commission, and I think our clients should have them too, in that very little of the evidence that's been presented at Zondo could not have been presented in a criminal court as part of a criminal prosecution of the implicated persons. And my suspicion is not Mr. Zondo himself, who is a decent man, but the idea of the Zondo Commission was an attempt to get the public to believe that firm action was being taken against the corrupt, while stopping short of taking the sort of firm action that a criminal prosecution would entail. So there's a political problem to begin with. But the things become very interesting because Jacob Zuma says he will not appear before the commission. The Constitutional Court has said he should. The Zondo Commission is now considering its options, and they are limited. I mean, they can take some further actions against the man, but in the end, he'll have to be arrested by a policeman, chained up and dragged before the commission. And the question, that can happen. The question is politically, is this something the ANC will allow to occur? And that is a very big and very important question. Where he's at, his headspace at the moment is here to say, I'm sick and tired of being scapegoated as the cause of all corruption, low economic growth, etc., state capture in the country for the last 20 years. Of course, he's culpable for some of that, but many of his erstwhile colleagues are equally culpable, including those still in the ANC and in the cabinet, and not just his former allies, but some of his former opponents in the ANC. And if you press Mr. Zuma to this point of drag him there and sit him down, maybe he gets fed up enough to say, right, if you force me to be here and I've got to testify, well, then I've got a story to tell you. And that story, our own insights justify, would implicate more than half of the current senior leadership of the ANC in acts of corruption or allegations at least so serious that if they have merit, those people will go to jail with Mr. Zuma for 15 years. So will the ANC pull the trigger now and give the political green light to the police to arrest the man and drag him before the judge and sit him down and tell him to answer the questions? My sense is that the ANC cannot afford to allow a sincere, sweeping set of inquiries and later prosecutions into corruption. They can only do this politically, create a sense in the public mind that they take corruption seriously, while in fact shielding the bulk of their leadership from sanction. And that's my sense on how they're going to handle Mr. Zuma's refusals to appear. And I think he's a very clever chap, Mr. Zuma. I think he knows that himself.
So during his time on Robben Island, Jacob Zuma was well known as a crafty chess player. And I think that he is plotting his next move. What do you think are the next steps from here for Mr. Zuma?
Yeah, David, to an extent, and I must explain this very carefully, I do have some sympathy for the position Jacob Zuma finds himself in. And the sympathy is this, is that there is a very transparent attempt coming out of the current cabinet and the ANC to personalize and center all corruption and state capture activities of the past many years in the person of Jacob Zuma himself, and to focus the public mind on him, to convince the public it was Jacob Zuma that did it all. And if we can only get him and persecute him and later prosecute him and lock him up, then the problem will be resolved. And obviously that's not right. There's an institutional problem of corruption across that party and across a lot of the government that it runs. And Mr. Zuma is getting fed up and he's fighting back on this. Beware in your own analysis of South Africa that you don't fall victim to these little guises amongst the sort of people who do this for a living. No one for 1 second thinks that Jacob Zuma on his own was responsible for the plight the country finds itself in. I mean, with due respect, Cyril Ramaphosa was his deputy president. Many of the existing cabinet were his peers, as were the bulk of the National Executive Committee of the ANC today. Also be cautious that once the Zuma thing has run out of legs, that the ANC doesn't try and do this with Ace Magashule as well. The public are now getting frustrated again with corruption. They've heard a lot about Zuma. Zuma seems to not be going anywhere. And so the story starts being created. Well, it's Ace Magashule is now the problem. So let's go after him. They all deserve to be prosecuted and sent to prison. I'm sure of that. However, if you fall for these ruses yourself and begin to think that, well, if Jacob Zuma was only dealt with, then South Africa would begin to recover. You're set to be disappointed week after week and month after month by the fact that real reform in South Africa does not take place. The problem of corruption in the country is institutional. It's been woven into the institutional fabric of the ruling party and the government. And only a massive project of sweeping prosecutions of scores of senior people would be able to address that sufficiently for the blight of corruption no longer to be a long-term country risk factor for South Africa. And as you know, you don't need to hear it from us. There is no such broad drive at the moment. I don't think there's going to be one either. And the reason is that the institutionalized nature of the problem means that rooting it out would cause damage and upheaval that the ANC could probably not survive.
Well, thanks very much, Frans. If you enjoyed this analysis, you might want to subscribe to the CRA's weekly risk alert, where Frans and the CRA team profile the key risks in the week ahead. There's a link in the description below to our free trial. You can access the report through that route. My name is David Ansara. Until next time, take care.